We're glad to have you this morning. Looking forward to your lesson, and again, very proud of you and your family.
All right, good morning, guys. Good morning. Man, this is just going to fit. All right. So, first of all, I just want to reiterate, my name's Will. Man, this is an awesome crowd. This is great. I remember I got to speak with you guys one time at the old building, and man, this is so nice. I mean, the building is not what makes the church, but it helps. You know what I mean? And it's this is really, really nice. And something that I really like to see, I just want to brag on it, is the aroma. And I don't mean the physical smell. I mean like the culture, the vibe. It's it's just a very friendly, loving environment to walk into, and I think it makes a huge difference. So kudos to you guys for that. All right, so my name's Will. It's my wife, Kelsey, and the beautiful green dress and brown hair. She's taken, but it's my wife. We got 4 kids. I preach at Sugar Grove in the metropolitan town of Horse Branch, Kentucky. You all are all familiar with this place, of course. It's we actually just moved up there last week. We were living in anybody know Colebiet, out past Smiths Grove. Okay, Charlie Beat. If you're not from there, that's what you say. But Colebiet, and it's been a great place to live, but it's a subdivision with an HOA, and we have too many children that pee outside for us to live there. So we are now on a farm, and it is fantastic. We are loving it. My stress level is just gone down, and it's just, man, it's such a blessing to be closer to our church family, and it's really good. Okay, so we're going to jump right into this today, and first thing I'm going to say is this. One of the good things that our church does, and we've got bad things that our church does, and we've got stuff to work on, right? But one of the good things that our church does is, instead of Sunday evening services, we decided several years ago to, when we finish worship, 10-minute break. If you got to go, it's totally fine. Right? If not, we're going to jump right back into our Sunday evening service. Immediately follows church, and it's open discussion on the lesson. It's called In the Weeds with Will. It's cute, isn't it? And so it's a review of the lesson. We talk about it, comments, questions. Has anybody got something important to share, et cetera, et cetera. It's really special. It also frees us up to every once in a while, me and Kelsey will go somewhere else on a Sunday night, because we've already done our church thing and we're available. And one of the best things for me as a preacher is to sit in the pews every once in a while, right? And one of the things that I've noticed is I hate being lectured at. My personal preference, okay? So I am a discussion man at heart. So that's why I'm telling you guys, is because we're going to be doing some discussion today, okay? So I'm going to do I've got my scriptures, and I've got my reading, I want to talk about some stuff. But if you're like, I just love to sit here and just listen for 45 minutes or however long it is, that's not what I do, okay? So we're going to do some talking, because one of the things that I noticed is like this recently. I mean, it was like 45 minutes of class, lecture, and you could copy and paste the entire thing and put it at any other church, and you'd have no idea what church it was from. What I mean by that is there's nothing personal about it. Like, you're doing the whole class, and I don't know most people's names in here, but I don't know what Don is thinking while I'm saying this stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm making a good point, if I'm a bad point, if I'm communicating well, nothing. I've got my manuscript, and I'm just going this line, and this line. Any comments or questions? And I'm looking here. When I say, anybody have anything they want to say? Okay, good. And we're going to move on, and I'm not really asking for your opinion. That's not what we're going to do today. Okay, so that's the introduction. Revelation chapter 2. If you got your Bible, we're going to start here, and we're going to look at 3 passages, and hopefully we will spring forth into some great discussion. Now, I've already said there's something in the air here. There's something that feels like a special church culture. There's a lot of people visiting around. It seems very happy. So what we're about to read is not me saying, y'all are guilty of this. Do you understand? I'm not calling everybody out. What I'm about to read But this is to get us starting to think. All right. Revelation chapter 2, starting in verse 1. To the angel of the church in Ephesus, write, the one who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, the one who walks among the 7 gold lampstands, say this: I know your deeds and your toil and your perseverance, and you cannot tolerate evil men. And you put to test those who call themselves apostles, and they are not, and you found them to be false, and you have perseverance and have endured for my name's sake and have not grown weary. So what does that mean? Good job, guys. Good church. I go to a good church. Y'all go to a good church? It's a good church, right? But even good churches have stuff to work on. And this is what he says. But I have this against you. Y'all know this. That you have left what? You've left your first love. All right, now this is where this is going to go. Here's Will's hot take on something in the church. Okay. My hot take is this: we should never ever have to preach on evangelism, ever, because evangelism should just happen. Are there Bible verses that command to evangelize? Yeah, I mean, Jesus talks about the Great Commission, right? Go and preach. And again, he says in Acts 1, start in Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, and the rest of the world. Guys, take it everywhere. But evangelism is something that's come natural. Like I've seen churches that have spent big money on having some guy come in and do a workshop on evangelism. Y'all may have done that. I'm not judging or condemning you. But evangelism should be natural. And I think part of why we have a hard time talking about Jesus is because we don't spend a whole lot of time anymore talking about our first love. So, question that's going to come later: why do I love Jesus? And sometimes, not all churches, but sometimes, I'm ashamed to say it, it's hard for us to ask that question anymore. Because this is what happens, okay? Like, we just assume that that's taken care of. Can I share something kind of personal and bad about myself for just a minute? Come on, guys. Y'all want some dirt, don't you? Come on. Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right. I think it was back in July. I don't really want to go look at it and watch the video again. I've cried about 3 times in my life, okay? Like, I do not cry. It's a pretty rare occasion. I think one of them was when Liam was born. The first time I teared up a little bit, and after that, I'm like, nah, this is old news, you know? Second, third, and fourth, no big deal. I've seen this before. Okay. But I was going through the Gospel of Matthew, preaching on Sundays, and y'all are not going to believe this. Maybe you will. And, I'm preaching on Jesus cleansing the temple, preaching on the widow's mite, preaching on all these great things, and I get to the cross. And I promise you, these are my first thoughts when I got to that. We all already know the story of the cross. So I'm going to skip these 1 or 2 chapters, and I can't wait to get to this part where Jesus starts talking about, on the road to Emmaus and Luke, and he's talking to his guys, and he's like, if you search the old scriptures, who are you going to find? Me, right? And I can't wait to get to that part that is so fun to talk about Jesus in the Old Testament. And I'm like, y'all hear what I'm saying? I'm a gospel preacher. And what do you think is the most important moment in the entire history of the world? Maybe creation, maybe this stuff, that's. What's the most important thing that ever happened in the history of our planet? The cross. And when I got to it, what did I want to do? We all know that. And so then I went on this journey of, okay, lest I be the scum of the earth, I went through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and it took several hours. And I just tried to chronologically put in everything that happens. And there's like 4 chapters, 5 chapters in John that aren't included in any of the other Gospels. I just set those aside, okay? But from the time that Jesus is betrayed to the time that he says it is finished, it's like 350-something verses, plus several chapters that are not in John. That are in John that are not in the other books. And I was like, I told the church, I was like, I don't know how long this is going to take. So if you got to leave, that's fine. But I'm not stopping until I finish this story. And so I started with Jesus being betrayed. And by the time I got to the end of it, I couldn't finish the cross story without crying. And there's this guy there who grew up in church, fell away, and I swear to you, that afternoon, he came over to one of our elders' houses. We were all there doing other stuff. And he was like, I want to get baptized in Josh's Pond. And we're like, what? And he was like, when I heard the story of the cross, the way that was preached, he's like, I've got to have Jesus' blood. And so I realized the church is starving for Jesus. Maybe not you guys. I don't know you all. But the church at large does not know why they love God. Not really. They know we're supposed to be here on Sundays, right? We're supposed to take the Lord's Supper. We don't use instruments. And we've got to make sure that we do our formula. 2 songs, prayer, 30 minutes. Okay? If we're doing a potluck, ladies, certain kind of casseroles we got to have. All right? It's like, okay, that's all that stuff's great. But you know what else has to be number 1? You're doing good stuff, Ephesus, but Revelation 2, you forgot your love. And I promise you, if we get back to why we love God, evangelizing is natural. And when somebody's like, well, what about this passage back in Leviticus 12? I'm like, I don't know. Let's go look it up. I don't know. But here's what I can tell you about. I can tell you about why I got Jesus. That was the name of our gospel meeting in Morgantown with me and Andrew and John. Y-I-G-O-T-T. You know, Andrew got, Will got, John got. Why I got Jesus? Let me just tell you, this is why I got him. Okay. Second passage, Matthew 24. And then we got our third passage, and then we're going to do some talking. All right, so Matthew 24. All right, so there's some stuff in here about Jesus' coming back, the destruction of the temple, and, you know, just a real quick snippet into some things that can help us understand what you're going to see, what you're going to find, what it's going to look like, you know, so you don't miss it, so you don't mistake it, whatever. Okay. And you're looking at, let's say, verses 12 and 13, and what are you going to see of the description of some of the people? All right, because lawlessness is increased. Most people's hang on, let's one more time. Because lawlessness is increased, so sin is abounding more and more. Most people, what's going to happen to their love? What does your all's Bible say? It's going to grow cold. It's like setting the old ember from a fire off to the side, and what happens? Just give it some time. Give it some time, and you can pick it up. It's going to lose it. The gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. All right. And the last passage, I'm just going to paraphrase for us because I want us to talk. Jeremiah 2, verses 2 through 5. Jeremiah is going to give a description of the people and some of the good things that you see, some of the bad things that you see. And guess what is there once again? This is a pretty common theme. Our love for God. In Matthew 9 and also in Matthew 12, you remember when Jesus has got his disciples and they're walking through the grain fields on the Sabbath and they're picking the heads of grain and they're doing their little, and they're eating some food, which is nuts, by the way, that anyone would consider that work. It's not work, right? Like, let's use our brains here. But they're like, oh, Jesus, he's out here. Him and his disciples are breaking the Sabbath. They are breaking the old law. And so he's like, well, first of all, let's talk about David for a second. And he gives him that. And then he says, and how about this? Go and learn what this Bible passage means. And by the way, if your church doesn't know the Bible passage that Jesus quotes, it'd be a great one to study. He says, go look at Hosea 6:6. And in Hosea 6, God says, your loyalty is like the morning dew. What is that? Like Mountain Dew? What is that? Do what? Yeah. You go out there early enough, you walk around, you get your shoes wet, right? Give it some time, now we can mow. Because it'll be gone. Just give it a little bit. He says, your loyalty is like that. Does that make you feel good? Does not make me feel good. And then he says, I'm paraphrasing here, offering sacrifices, let's say our contribution. You could have where's the contribution? Y'all have it? That's good. I love that, by the way. But I don't know if you're like, oh, next week it'll be up. That's fine. But, okay, let's say contribution. It's like, y'all seen that before up on the boards. I'm like, okay, we could put $10,000 up on there. I'd be like, you could put $100,000 up on there. Eventually you'd run out of space, right? Like $1 million, we don't have enough zero. God's like, you can put as many sacrifices as you want to. You can stack them up until you got to start wearing oxygen because you're getting into the atmosphere, like way out there in outer space. You can do all that you want to, but there's something that matters more than all burnt offerings and sacrifice. He says, loving kindness. Your loyalty matters to me more than that. Your relationship with me matters to me more than that stuff. And in Mark's account, remember the guy that comes to Jesus and he's like, what's the greatest command? Y'all remember that story? And when Jesus says to love God with everything and love your neighbor as yourself, he says, this is surely more important than burnt offerings and sacrifices. In Mark's account, he says that. And Jesus says, you are not far from the kingdom. You get it, man. You are close. You get it. More important than perfect attendance, and I love perfect attendance, right? But more important than that is people's hearts have got to be on fire for God in a personal, deep relationship, fully convinced of their love for Him and His love for them. Okay. So, Revelation 2, Matthew 24, Jeremiah 2, you can throw some of those other ones in there if you want to, the Matthew 9, Matthew 12, referring back to Hosea 6, and we see this common theme that it's very, 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 very important that we understand why we do what we do. And it is not in and of itself to keep the commands, right? I keep the commands because I'm saved, because I love and respect God. It's like somebody that, well, I don't know, I hope nobody here, never mind, I won't do that. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll use a different example, okay? It's like, let's use an easy one we can all agree on. It's like drugs. You don't have to raise your hand, but if you ever dealt with drugs or know any drug addicts, let me tell you something that does not work. You go up to a drug addict and you tell him, hey, don't do that. Does that work? It's interesting. You go read the 12 steps and stuff like, you know what's in that? It is all about surrendering and trusting in a higher power. It is a God-based system. And that's why that has carried on. They don't have AA meetings for people that says, stop drinking. Yeah, hey, Joe, I'm an alcoholic. Hey, Joe, stop drinking. That doesn't work. But man, you get people fired up on a relationship with God, and you'll get them to quit everything and follow Him. Okay, so here's my question for you guys. Y'all share whatever answer you want. It does not matter. But why do you love Jesus? What is it that you love about Jesus? Anything and everything. You can be like, I like His outfit. I don't care. Whatever it is. Y'all just start. Okay, here's one. Can you say that a little louder? Sorry. Yeah. He died on the cross when He didn't have to. All right? So part of the horrific beauty of that story is that He did not deserve it at all. In fact, I did, right? We did. But He still did it. That's great. Died on the cross when he didn't have to. What else?
He's kind, he's loving, he's selfless.
So his attributes is kind, loving, selfless. Okay? All those are good lessons, good sermons right there. All right, what else?
I'm quoting the song that because he first loved me.
Because He first loved me. Yeah, we yesterday when we did our God Jesus thing, first song we sang was, hang on. I was sinking deep in sin. You know that? And it's like, who? I was sinking deep. Like, oh yeah, that was me. And then when you get to the chorus, if you ever pay attention to the guy part, love lifted me. And what do the guys say? Even me. Yeah. I mean, that's a good one. If you got visitors, that's a good one for them to hear us say. It's like, no, I'm singing this right now because this is for me. Yeah, that's powerful. Okay, what else?
Non-judgmental.
Non-judgmental. Yeah, man, y'all are going to steal from my sermon. You're going to hear my sermon twice, okay? This is not my fault. Y'all are just bringing up stuff I think about. Yeah, man, one of the greatest stories for me is the woman that's caught in adultery in John 8. And I don't want to make people too uncomfortable, but can you just kind of imagine getting caught in adultery for just a minute? I'm like, I don't know if this lady's wrapped up in a bed sheet. You know what I mean? Dragged out into the open in front of a bunch of overzealous religious men with stones in their hand, just ready. I've been waiting all day to beat the snot out of a guilty woman. And with a woman who is, let's just say, potentially, without clothes, covered in a bed sheet, caught in the act of all that stuff, and what does Jesus find a way to do? Sweetheart, I'm not here to judge you. I was not sent to judge the world. I was sent to do what? So I'm going to find a way to get all of your accusers to get up and walk away. And is that not a bigger picture of what he does with Satan? And then when he gets done with that, Jesus not being judgmental doesn't mean Jesus doesn't have expectations, right? He says, now honey, get up and go do what? Don't you ever crawl back into another woman's bed. Ever. But if you do, where do you need to go? Right back to me, right? Yeah. I don't think people understand. Jesus is not here, did not come here to just enforce laws, okay? Laws were meant to be broken. That's quoted the wrong way. But in a biblical context, I think Paul talks about it in Romans. Laws came in so that sin would abound. Like, y'all need to understand that you can't do it on your own. So how about, here's 10 laws. How about let me give you 400 more and see how you want to do it. All right, do you want to rely on yourself or do you need God's help? I need God's help. That's right, you do. Okay, why else do we love Jesus? Why else do you guys love Jesus? It doesn't even have to be your answer. Why do you think this church loves Jesus? Okay, it's through him we have salvation. Not of ourselves, right? Yeah. I had a recent epiphany. This could totally be wrong, but this is just how I think about stuff. That we're talking with this couple on the topic of baptism, and a lot of times, unfortunately, I think the church turns baptism into like a good deed and like a little badge of like, I was baptized, and this has nothing to do with us. Baptism is about Jesus' blood, okay? Or does that sound bad? Baptism is essential to our salvation, but it's not about me, right? And I think one of the weird things is, are there any examples in the Bible of people baptizing themselves on their own? How is somebody baptized? What's the example? What do you do physically? How many people go into the water? I think I heard some extent. Let's try this one more time. All right. Are there any examples in the Bible of people like Will wants to get baptized and he's like, I'm going up here by myself. How does somebody get baptized? All right. Somebody, you got to at least have two, right? If it's a big person, maybe three. I think it's just kind of interesting that the only way that you can be baptized if somebody else does it to you. Because maybe it's just me, but it's like, don't try to take credit for that. You know? How are we saved? Jesus saves. Now, I don't care who it is. I don't care who's the one baptizing. But it's not about me and look what I've done. I was baptized. No, I received the grace of God in that water that represents Jesus' blood, and I'm so glad that I killed the old man, and I'm coming up out of that watery tomb a new man. Praise God. What a great day. It's not about me. It's about Jesus. Okay, why else do we love Jesus?
We'll spend eternity in heaven.
Eternity? That's a long time, Don. Eternity in heaven. I know I'm still a relatively young man. 31. Can y'all believe that? 31. Some of y'all probably changed my diapers. Yep. I am 31, folks. And I'm telling you, like I've got a 71-year-old's body. I mean, it just pain and stuff hurts and falls apart. I mean, like, I've got a few back braces, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a silly thing. I look forward to, I mean, that's one thing about heaven. And I only hear the older you get. What? Worse it gets? Yeah. I mean, what's cool about heaven? What do y'all like? I mean, what are some other perks about heaven? Anybody want to go there? No more tears, no more sorrows. Paradise. Being in the presence of God. Let's put that at the top of the list. What else? Seeing your parents. Seeing, man, I don't know if y'all, anybody works a secular job and you like go out into the world for 5 days and then you come back here and you're like, man, it's so good to be back around who? God's people. And it's not mean perfect people, but it means God's people, people that want to do right. And there's a whole city full of that in heaven. I like that. You know? I'll talk about this a little bit, but we went on a princess cruise last year. And by the way, you know there's like Carnival, which is like, I don't know, people say it's like a party cruise line, and there's Royal Caribbean or whatever. Let me tell you what Princess is. Princess is the Old Farts cruise, and it is fantastic. I love Princess. I mean, there is an electric wheelchair at every elevator, okay? Like, you don't understand. It is my kind of people. It's so great. It's like there's a cruise line that's just God's people. Can you imagine partying on a cruise line with just God's people? It's like, man, I don't have to worry about any nonsense. It's like an eternal cruise line with God's people. Would that be fun? Like, yes. You don't have to worry about where your kids wander off to. You don't have to worry about your kids, what they're going to see, what I'm going to see. It's like God's people. Heaven is going to be so awesome, isn't it? All right, why else do we love Jesus? What else do we look at? Yeah.
We think about what Christ did for us on the cross, and he suffered and was tortured. But something that meant more to me in Hebrews 2, verse 9. Man has suffered and has died for each other, like on the battlefield. And so man can give himself for other men. And that's, those who are loved. And that's what Christ did for us. But in Hebrews, it says there that he tasted death for all men. And when I finally came to realize that wasn't just physical death, it was spiritual death. Because if he was to take sin upon himself, then he could not actually be in the presence of God. And when you realize that, then you realize that God turned his back on him. And why he said, why have you forsaken me? And I think that's also why when he was in Gethsemane and prayed so fervently, it wasn't death that he was fearing. It was, he was going to suffer that spirit. What we, are destined, except for him, we were going to, see it, but he tasted so we didn't have it. And so that was really a meaningful to me. And great sacrifice.
All right, that is a absolutely awesome point. So yeah, it's like, you remember Philippians 2, that Jesus emptied himself and he humbled himself, right? He became a man, walked among us and all that stuff, and he humbled himself to the point of the cross and all that. But like, what's the implication is, where was Jesus before he came to this world? With God, right? And do y'all remember these? How many times did Jesus say, especially in John, I and the Father are one. Okay? So I'm going to give you Will's street language for that. I love my daddy. I love my daddy. We do everything together. And you remember when, I forget which one of the 12 it was, but they're like, show us the Father. Do you remember when they say that? The audacity? And he's like, how long have you been with me? If you have been with me, who have you seen? My dad. Because I walk like him, I talk like him, my mannerisms are right. Everything is God in the flesh. Right? So, does Jesus care about his relationship with his Father? And for the joy that is set before him, even though it's the cross, what's the joy? Is that after that, where does Jesus ascend to in Acts 1? Back to go be with the Father, right? And that's what you're saying is, if that's like the thing that he loves and cares about, when he goes to the cross for me, it's not just physical death, which, by the way, nobody wants to do what he did. But it's also, Dad, why have you forsaken me? Why are you turning your back? I mean, he knows. I'm like, why is it, guys? It's because of the stupid stuff that Will Gott does. The stupid stuff that we all do. And he was willing to, in his biggest time of need, when everyone else deserted him, the most important in his life, the most important person in his life, his father, had to desert him. How many sins did it take in the garden to be kicked out of the presence of God? One. That's called holiness. And Jesus took them all on. And when you take on the sin of the world, you ain't got nothing to do with God's presence anymore. And he had to go through that. Yeah. Okay, what else? What time do I need to stop? 10:15? Okay. Oh, we're good. By the way, I live in basically a small daycare with 4 children. And silence is a blessing to my ears. So if y'all don't want to talk, don't think I'm going to oh, he hates the awkwardness. No, I don't. You will break before I will, okay? All right. Why else do we love Jesus? Man, y'all are really ruining the sermon, okay? Y'all are all saying all this. Okay, yeah. Tell me more. What? He set an example for us, okay? Yeah. This is not a simple point. It is simple, but it's very profound. Anybody ever wonder how I should handle a situation? What should I do here? And if you know that Jesus was perfect and he never sinned and every decision that he made was right, then what can we do with Jesus? Well, they used to make bracelets about it. What would Jesus do? Okay. And you're like, okay, maybe it's some conflict with fellow Christians and stuff. And I just don't know. How did Jesus handle spiritual conflict? Ooh, there's a bunch of stuff there, right? How did he handle the scribes and Pharisees? How did he handle the temple? And that does not always mean that the first line of defense is, go make a whip. That's not what I'm saying. But was Jesus confrontational when he needed to be? Oh, I hate confrontation. But if I want to do the right thing, what did Jesus do? Okay. I hate being around evil and sinful stuff. Was Jesus approachable? Oh, that's a tough one too. That hurts. Well, if I want to do the right thing, this is a pretty simple question. Do people approach me, Will? Maybe I need to be more approachable. How do I be a good friend? What's a good friend look like? What does anything look like? How do I deal with money? How do I worry about how do I pray? Does Jesus show us some examples on how to pray? Yeah, so I love that. That's good. They opened the doors. Is that like the prequel to like, I need to stop? Or do I still go to 15? All right. We got 5, huh?
there'll be another bell.
Okay, well, we got 5 minutes, roughly. What else, guys? Why do we love Jesus? Y'all have some really good answers, by the way. Why else do we love Jesus?
Peace that I have with God through Him.
Peace that you have with God through Him? Yeah. There was a time, especially when I was in middle school, man, I was doing so many stupid things. This is how I remember kind of how bad it was like going to school was so bad and making such bad decisions. And eventually, ALC gets old, right? You're tired of being in detention. And I remember the best part of my day was I just looked forward to going to bed because then I could escape the consequences of my decisions. Okay. Does that sound good to you guys? That's not very good. But yeah, it's quite evident to me that my soul was restless. And I really enjoy when my soul is at peace. And where do we find peace? In Jesus. Do you think people's souls out there are restless? Do y'all have a phone or the news or go to school or go to the grocery or have friends or neighbors? Yeah, that'll preach, won't it? Man, are you, how about this? How about forget door knocking, forget the flyer for the church, forget, let me give you our bulletin, forget all that. How about you just talk to your friends, talk to your family, and like, is your soul at peace? Like, are you satisfied? Are you fulfilled in life? If you are, Jesus is of no use to you. He did not come to heal the well, He came to heal the who? The sick. But man, if you are restless, let me tell you something. He will give you peace that even goes past, it surpasses what? Understanding. Like it doesn't even make sense how much peace this is going to bring you. Huh? You got to want it. You do. And I would argue that Jesus never forced it on anybody. He looked for the people, like the woman at the well, who needed it. And when He brought it up, He set it out there. And if you want it, you can have it. You ain't got to take it. Yeah, you can lead them water, can't make them drink. Yep. Same thing is true of children. Still trying to figure that out. Any advice we will take. All right, we got 2 minutes. We're about to get our bell. Any last closing thoughts or comments? All right, great answers, guys. This was not heavy on scripture in terms of reading a whole lot, but here's my encouragement to you all. You all are the best advertisement for God as His people. So if you're worried about what to say, there's about 12 answers for you. Just talk about, man, I just love my Jesus. He is so good. Like, why? Like, let me tell you, man. That stuff will preach. All right, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.